Um, information about reschedules in Discord, names for teams and students, forfeits, those kinds of things. The fall season is a little different from the spring, so we definitely want to touch on some of those pieces. General reminders and then some updates. There have been some minor adjustments from our summer meetings. We took all of your feedback and we addressed everything that we could. And some of it was, this is out of our hands. Some of it, we bumped it up to AIA. They said, sorry, we can't do that. Or what we could do, we tried to implement. I did post on Discord that if you wanted some specific feedback on your request or concern specifically, please let me know. I'd be happy to have a one-on-one call and let you know what was the outcome of your specific concern if you don't see it addressed in our meeting. So our members of our committee, we have Robbie from Desert Ridge, John from Valley Christian, and our two new members to our committee, we have Marcus from Benjamin Franklin, and we have Aaron from Liberty High School as well. So we're so excited those changes happened. One very recently, one over the summer. We'll get them all acclimated, but the bottom line is that we are here to serve you, support you in any way that we can, really help bridge the gap between coaches, schools, administrators, and AIA and Playfly. So you're totally good. I was almost late myself because of tech issues. It's all good. We also have with us our amazing support from Playfly. We have Joe, our operations manager. And I don't know if Kyler or Curtis are going to be able to join.
They will not tonight. I will be on for today.
Cool. But they're always available for help. We do have a general email for Playfly that will go to their entire team. Discord's another great place, just at Playfly, and it will ping their entire team on Discord so that someone will be able to help you, especially if it's a game day issue that you need it addressed quickly. They are available on standby. Just tag them at Playfly, send that email, and the entire team will get it. You can't email one of them directly, just you are at the mercy of their schedules. So it'd be better for you to email the general Esports AIA, because then anyone on their team is going to be able to help and support. All right. So our meeting norms, very basic stuff. Use the chat. We're going to have our committee members there to help answer questions. And if I catch it and we want to address a big group, we'll do that. If you want rather vocally say your question, there's a feature where you can raise your hand and it'll notify me so that I can let you know and you can unmute yourself and you can speak. We will have a Q&A at the end to help address anything else that we haven't talked about yet. And then, of course, this is being recorded as well as with the transcript of the chat. So it can be shared if you have an assistant coach or athletic director or someone from a sister school that just was unable to attend. We'll have those recordings available for everyone. So we'll begin. General coaches' expectations. As you may remember, several years ago, AIA did make it mandatory for all of our teams to play at the same location. Therefore, that means the coach must be present for all practices and games. If you have assistant coaches, that's totally fine. Like, let's say you have a conference or PD or something going on, you can have an assistant coach step in. For those game days, however, make sure that they are fully aware on how to use the system. You have to be able to communicate with your opponents during the game, the opposing coach. And when you have an assistant or just another staff member in the room and they don't have access to those systems, it really delays our games. So we want to make sure that there's a knowledgeable adult in the room at all times. Make sure all of your team members are on their main accounts. I know that it's become like a huge trend. Most of our kids, especially our higher level kids, have multiple accounts and they have a gazillion reasons to justify it. However, they have to be, we ask that you please ensure that they are on their main account. With that being said, the account that they register on Playfly is the only account that they can play on in competition. You can't be switching accounts mid-season. There's rules, the biggest reasons, because we have rules behind if somebody were to get banned, then they're no longer allowed to compete. So that is our first line of defense to ensure that no student that got banned is still competing. We ask that you monitor all games, chat, streams, avoid any toxic behavior and comments. Every coach has their own, I guess, measure for what's appropriate. Just realize that a lot of teams, you may be playing private schools, religious schools, they're streaming. We have all variations and diversity in our community. We want to make sure that our teams aren't saying something in-game chat that then gets streamed on somebody else's platform, and then their community member is bringing up issues. So realize that we're really all in this together, in the sense that if one of our kids crosses the line, it does affect all of our programs. So please make sure that you're monitoring your students. And if and when something does happen, that you address it right away. Or if a coach says, hey, your kid, right as the game was ending, they said blah, 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 that you take that and you address it with your player right away. And because at the end of the day, they are representing your campus and they're representing our program as a whole, as a state. Any questions about our coaches' expectations? All right, Discord is for coaches only. Discord does allow you to create a link and invite others. When we share the link, we'll share the link in chat as well. If any new coaches have not joined us on Discord, please don't share that with students. There's a lot of resources on Discord, but we want to make sure that it stays professional, so students only. We have created a channel for administrators. So if you have an athletic director that really wants to join to get input, stay up to date with stuff, they will have a slightly more restricted version of our Discord server, just so they don't get overwhelmed. We have an off-topic channel to just talk about other games, to talk about, other opportunities going on. Like, I'm a math teacher, so sometimes another math teacher on there will talk about stuff. I've seen other subjects do it. We try to schedule scrimmages through there. We have a lot of general chats, and we do address, I love the environment that we have, that it's safe to address the hard questions. When we disagree on topics, when we have questions or we want things to get better, we have healthy discussions on how we can make our sport better. We do ask that you change your nickname to your first, at least your first name, last initial, and then what school you are from. It makes it easier for people to find you. Playfly is on there, so you can always add Playfly in any of the Playfly channels. The general set of channels, Playfly does not have access to those. Again, trying to condense what information Playfly has, and they're not getting notifications all the time from all of us talking. Not all the schools are on Discord. This is something that we work on every single year. So when you are looking for scrimmages or you're trying to get a hold of a coach to reschedule something, realize that not everyone is on there. If you're not sure, you can let one of the administrators know. I believe it's Robbie, John from Willow Canyon, and myself that are the administrators on Discord, or the advisory committee. We can look and see if those schools are on Discord and help you out. Questions? That is a question for Playfly. Joe, is that an option?
Yes, we can make an export for that.
Okay, thank you. That'd probably be better for the spring, realizing that fall teams can register all throughout the fall season, so it won't be a comprehensive list, but definitely before the spring season, we can set reminders to send that out. Fall season, there are no reschedules, purely because it's a queue system for everyone. So what I mean by that is on game day, let's say you're playing Rocket League, your game day is Thursday at 4 o'clock. The queue opens, correct me if I'm wrong, 3:45, 3:50? 3:50. All right. The queue opens at 3:50. If your team is ready to compete, you as the coach will log into the platform, check in your team that you're ready to play. You get added to the list. When the queue timer runs out, I believe my brain is fried, 10-minute timer, 15-minute timer.
15 minutes, 5 after the hour.
Minutes. So at 4:05, you will get matched up against another school that also queued up. So in fall season, you will not know who you're playing until 4:05. Once you find out who you're playing in the platform, you have a chat. You will join the chat, talk to that coach, create your private match, and you can start your games from there, which is why it's so important that the coach is in the room and that you are, sorry, automated lights, that you are in the room so that you can have those conversations. And that is going to be JV and varsity. Both teams are on the queue system.
Kenya.
Yeah.
So just to clarify, I want to make sure, Joe, with Joe, we are going to have a varsity queue and a JV queue this year, right? It's not going to be one big group, right? That was the goal.
I believe that was the goal. Let me pull up the rule books and our notes and double check real quick.
And then Testa asked, is there a way to limit how many teams how many times we play our own teams? I understand where you're coming from as well. Like I have 3 Smash teams, and so if the odd team out is one of those teams or anything like that, like we oftentimes would have to play like our A and our B, like that. From my understanding from Joe, is they do their best to have you play teams that you haven't already played and that are not your school. But if the only 2 teams that are left or like queued in later in the queue, is it a timing of the queue as well, or later in the queue? It just kind of depends.
It's a mix of different factors. The first thing that we check is we eliminate any pairings with the same school. Now, because we're operating with a limited pool, if you have 10 teams in Rocket League, that might be a little bit harder than if you had 2 teams. But our system runs all the variables and does its best to face you against other schools.
Yeah. So with the fall, you will queue into a JV league and or a varsity league, because I know some of the feedback last year was for the fall. Well, my JV team kept getting up against a varsity team, and they just wanted to stop playing, or they would just leave. We'd queue in, see who we get, and then some teams would leave. So we're trying to alleviate that as well, so that way we can level the playing field.
As far as the question on the timing, we recognize that some schools get out extremely late. That is something that you'll probably want to have conversations with your athletic director on what your options are. I believe we have adjusted in the rule book that a team has 15 minutes to join the match after the match time has started. So in the fall, that is a 4:05 time. So it means you have until 4:20 to join the lobby. Now, you can have a conversation with your opponent and say, can we have an extra 5 minutes? But that team does have the choice to decline. Honestly, my recommendation would be to work out that maybe your players get out 5-10 minutes early from class that one day a week. It would be frustrating to have to do that every week, and I see that. But I know in the spring, it's very common for a lot of sports to have to do that, because baseball, softball, they play much earlier games. They usually get out a lot more often. As a coach, you can check in your team at the right time so that you do get matched up. And then your players just have to hustle to your gaming space, get logged in, and be ready by 4:20. All right. Team names and accounts. When you create your account on Playfly, on our AZ ePreps, you want to make sure that your school name is what you're using. And then for your individual teams, you have to include the abbreviation of what game you're playing, whether it's varsity or JV. When creating your school names, avoid the abbreviation. So I'm at Gilbert, I'm not going to put GHS. Because the reality is that GHS could be Globe, could be Glendale, could be Greenway, could be Gilbert. Trying to think of who else would just be a G. So right there's enough options that we want to avoid them. And I know some people are like, well, mine's super unique. People should know. Not necessarily, because not everyone's as aware of all the schools on campus. And I know some of the names are extremely long. Like I feel bad for Sandra Day O'Connor because I feel like that's such a long high school name to have to put. But we ask that you at least put, I know I think for a while they were just O'Connor. That's completely okay, but please try to have your full school name on there. Your student names, their summoner names or account names, please make sure that they are school appropriate. Again, a lot of us are streaming our games. We want to make sure all of those are acceptable. So, some things are common that students will try to sneak in are the 420 references, the 69 references, misspelling of words that are connotations of inappropriate things are still inappropriate. They could be, harmless, but they could also be intended to not be harmless. Just err on the side of caution. As I tell my kids, like if you have to ask, you probably shouldn't have it. Because it's just better safe than sorry. Because the last thing we want is for something to slip by and then we all have to have like school accounts or something, because then that would really throw a wrench in things. So we really want to make sure that we as coaches are double checking those things. And if something that probably shouldn't be on there, please let Playfly know. They will handle it with that coach. They will make that final decision. But let's make sure that we are holding each other accountable as well. All right, rosters. Again, this is mostly for the spring season. We will go through this in great detail in our town hall for spring. We know that there's some confusion about subs, especially coming from JV to varsity. It's not as much of an issue in the fall season for those restrictions because there's no playoffs. We're not really tracking standings. But we do ask that you don't forfeit. If you are not ready to play, don't queue up. We had a lot of schools last year that would queue up thinking their kids are going to be there. And then last minute, Johnny says, oh, I forgot I have a doctor's appointment. Bye, coach. And then that team gets matched up against somebody and they're in chat. Sorry, my players left. We can't play. Now we have a team that was ready to play with no opponent. So if you're not 100% sure your players are going to be there, please do not queue up. Rosters will log 24 hours prior to the game. That's just, again, to get everyone used to that process. You cannot make last minute changes, especially for games like League of Legends. We want to stay consistent with our rules. That's why that rule is there for everyone. But League of Legends, you've got to be able to scout, which means we don't want those last minute changes going through. Are you saying for game time to start at 4 p.m., John? For like the
Mike, wait, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry. No, my rosters were getting locked too early. So I don't see the kids until 3:30, 4 o'clock on Monday, and my roster was already locked a couple times.
Okay.
Well, I know it's a 24-hour thing, but can we push that a little bit until like maybe 5 o'clock on Monday, especially since we didn't see the kids last 2 days or whatever. And so I had a bunch of issues because it was locked too soon on Monday. Can we say, 5 o'clock lock it or something like that? Because I'm pretty sure everyone will, if you're having a practice, should have eyes on the kids by then. But yeah, it was locked by like 3 o'clock or something on a couple times.
I think that might be a time zone issue that maybe was happening. Because I know they were really good about trying to stick it to 24 hours, but I know because we don't do daylight savings, I wonder if when we went from like, go ahead,
We'll
Joe.
double check it. I think it also might be a slight time difference in that we have that weird 15-minute check-in zone, so it might close it a little bit earlier because our lock period is based on hours. We can't go into minutes. So I'll double check the settings. If nothing else, I could look at like a 22-hour setting or something like that. Make sure it's clear out of that school zone time.
Yeah, the 22,
hour lock.
maybe 21 to be safe, just to make sure that if there is a daylight savings issue or whatever, just so we don't have that same problem again. Yeah, I got stuck with it a couple times, and yeah.
I will say the counter argument to that, just for everyone to be aware, it's also on the flip side of that is our last chance to meet with kids, to go over scouting, to talk about our picks and bans for tomorrow. So not having finalized rosters does create a little bit of a challenge on that side of things. We can definitely look at extending it. Just kind of keep in mind that extending it also kind of creates a challenge on the flip side of it. What I truly recommend is for you to have those conversations with your students, have a parent meeting where you give them a full calendar. And I know they're not going to fully stick to it, and parents are still going to schedule that dentist appointment on your game day. It's going to happen. I get that. But trying to provide as much information, front loading it, and being very serious on the fact that we are treating this like a sport. In the same way you wouldn't call off for a basketball game, we ask that you don't call off for our esports games. Having a full calendar that you give to your parents definitely helps minimize some of those issues. But we'll get back with you guys once we hear from Joe on what are the options for delaying that lock. So just look on Discord. We'll have final answers on that for you guys soon. If not for sure for the spring season. We want to make sure that's ironed out before then. All right, general reminders. Again, they must play on their main accounts. That account has to be registered with Playfly, with the exception of Smash Brothers. You can use your school account for everyone. Every student does still have to put their account on there, but you can play off of your school account once, so you don't have to sign out and sign back in a million times. League of Legends, when you load in, you have to load in order: top, jungle, mid, ADC, support. Smash, it is still the best of 3 for each player, but all 3 players must play. Smash must still be hardwired. In order, when you check in your players, actually, I'm sorry, we should have adjusted this. After you check in your players, you can click and drag your players around so that you can choose the order that they are going to compete in. So you can change the order. After you check in, you cannot change it. Yeah, Robert?
So I saw that and I was waiting to hear what you said. So are we going to change that in the rules? Because I know last year it was whoever your first player was locked, but as long as you let the other team know ahead of time, you could switch like your second and third. So you still had to play with those 3 players, but second and third you could switch if you needed to. So are we going to like change that, or is that still a thing? Or
that is changed in the rules now with the new version.
Yep.
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah.
Now, once you check in, you can't change it. So it's during the check-in process, a box is going to pop open, and that's when you have the option, like the dots on the side, where you can click and drag and choose your order. Once you check in, that's the order you have to stay with.
Yeah, because I know that last year, that was kind of what we all thought. But then there were some who was like, oh no, if you got like your second and third player, you could swap them as long as you told the other team ahead of time. And then we found, I think it was Joe that was actually the one who was telling us it technically was written that way in the rule. So yeah, it doesn't matter to me. I just want to make sure, like, for certain going forward.
Yep.
Kenya, just to bring up, I think what he's talking to here is more of the player substitution side of it. Like if player 2 or player 3 had to leave for some reason, do we want to allow substitutions in those cases, or
maybe let's have that conversation, because I don't have an answer. I mean, I have an opinion, but it might just be that. Just my opinion.
Discuss it to make sure, Rob. But as far as order of players, what's checked in on League Spot is now accurate.
Yeah, absolutely. Question about changing their main accounts. No, students cannot change their main account. Once they register that account, that is also, you'll see this later, that is also a change in the rules for League of Legends and Rocket League. They can't change their name. I know League of Legends created a new ability that you can pay to change your summoner name. Like it's still your same account, but you can change the summoner name. You cannot do that. It created a lot of issues as far as tracking to ensure that it is the same account. So we put it in the rules. The name and account that you register with at the start of the season cannot be changed for the duration of the season. They can change it for spring. They just can't change it in the middle of the fall or the middle of spring. In Rocket League, network issues or disconnects must be reported prior to the first goal in order to remake. That is kind of a challenge there. Duties include, yes, that does include controller or any hardware disconnects. If it happens prior to the first goal, then yes, you can remake. But if a goal has already been scored, you've got to finish out that match. And it's frustrating. I've been there. I've had students where they had to play 2v3 essentially because one was having so many issues. And then we just paused after that first game and got things figured out. And then we went into games 2 and 3 and 4 from there.
I would just point out in football, if a player has an issue with his uniform, the ref sends him off and you have to sub someone in. So it's very, very similar to that. If you're having an equipment issue, like the game keeps going. That's the way it works.
All right, I went through this one quickly, just so it's not misleading. We have no information on League Unlocked. We kept this in here from last year because we want to continue following up on it. Riot has not released any information. I searched everywhere, and there is no information about League Unlocked this year. So there's a couple options for that. One, okay, we'll answer that question in just 1 second. If you have newer players, they don't have a lot of the champions that they play, you still have to load it in the right order. You can obviously pick your champions in the order that you loaded. There are some third-party sites that can be used for picks and bans. We use them in state championships. If Riot doesn't release information about League Unlocked, we will share out the information for the third-party sites so that you can use those for your picks and bans so that you can still strategically pick and ban your champions. All right. So we'll keep you posted on that one. We had a question if it was addressed last year with wrong controls. I don't remember if we addressed that. Gentlemen, do you remember?
It doesn't specifically say it. I think it's going to be more of a case by case what the other coach and or players want to do. I would credit to like you show up to a baseball game and you're like, oh, we didn't bring the right bats. Well, that's unfortunately you should have come to the game prepared. And so that's what I tell our students as well is like, make sure when we're sitting there, warming up that your controller set is loaded in to where when you're ready to go that you can just click and change it over right then and there. And so if they forget to do that, then it's almost like saying, oh, I forgot my mitt or I forgot my tennis shoes or something like that. So the other teams aren't going to wait for them to get their equipment and delay the game, especially if the game has already started.
I will say I will make also kind of along those lines, like, yes, you might be able to run and get the right the bat, but think also League of Legends. Like I've had this happen multiple times where my kids aren't fully ready and they're picking their champion and they mistype it and we run out of time and Riot just assigns whatever they were mousing over. And it could be a complete disaster, but that doesn't allow for a remake because that was a user error. That was a player error. We can address it and we can put it in the rules. I would just be willing to say that we'd probably lean on the side of that's not worth a remake. Because that is a player error. That wasn't a tech issue. We want to focus on remakes being there when there's a network issue or some sort of a disconnect, not just I grabbed the wrong settings, if that makes sense.
Joe, what do they do in college, Joe?
I'll be honest, this has not really come up on the higher level. I think what the colleges do is they just handle it on a case-by-case basis. I imagine they either play it out or they reset it. It's just up to what the two teams are comfortable with and the timing of the request, because it's going to be a lot different if you know in the first 15 seconds versus the last 15 seconds.
Very true. All right, registration open today, so you can go on there and register your teams, but it is open through the entire fall season because it's the queue system. If you're like, my team's not ready yet, we're just getting started, I don't even have my lab, that's fine, you can wait. And if it comes to October 14th and you're like, we finally have our lab, it's all good, you can still register, play out the rest of the season. That kind of goes along with fall breaks. My school has 2 weeks of fall break. It's the first 2 weeks of fall season. So Gilbert's just not going to queue up for those 2 weeks. Our fall season's just shorter. There's no reschedules. There's just, if you can't play, don't queue up. Please contact Playfly with your school and team name. If you don't have an account, they have to add you first. You can't go on there and create your own account. So Joe's going to be your guy. You got to contact him. He will get you set up and show you how to create your account and help you get all that going. Admins can review and register them as well. A lot of administrators, I've seen that message us, they want their coach to do it because the coach is going to be managing the site. But your athletic director could also reach out to Playfly to get set up. Let's see. All registration steps are required before an admin can add your team. So just, again, you have to reach out to them. You will then include your individual students. You can send them invites. They have to create accounts. You have to allow them onto your team. You can't register until you have a complete roster. So if you're like, I know I have 5 for League of Legends, but this one kid hasn't created their account, you can't register your team at all until all 5 are in there. You need 5 for League of Legends, 3 for Smash, 3 for Rocket League. All right. IT information in the resources under AZE Preps. It does have full white lists that you will need to give to your IT department if you are new. All the things that they have to unlock and allow permissions for all the games. Joe, have we added the Vanguard information to the league list?
So far, we found nothing new in terms of whitelisting. It primarily just seems to be the kernel access anti-cheat is going to be installed and just working with IT on a case-by-case basis on what needs to be done there to allow that access to your computers.
If your district is hesitant on giving access, whitelisting, allowing things to go through, John from Valley Christian is going to be one of your best contacts. He is the IT director for Valley Christian. I don't understand half of what he explains half the time. So, John, you want to share something? You're muted.
Yeah, I'm muted. That's right. My boss is next to me on a call too. Yeah, so most of the pushback you're going to get from your IT departments is the concerns over SIPA, CISPA, whatever. I never remember the name of it. But the reality of the situation is we have all these schools that find compliant ways to do it. So any pushback you're getting is just them not wanting to find the ways to do it correctly. That's the long and short of it. It's it takes some work, but it's doable. And so if you need lists of schools that are participating, you can do that and reach out. I know that the way I specifically achieve it is a little bit different than the way everyone else does because I just paid for my own internet line out of budget. And so there are other schools that do other network stuff different. Please reach out on a case-by-case basis. My email is just jhunsaker@valleychristianaz.org. Hit me on Discord. I don't ever sleep. So that's I'm happy to help get anybody working in whatever that may be. But yeah, just hit me up offline.
You can always post something on Discord as well. There's a lot of coaches that have had to jump through different hurdles. I know in our district, Robbie handles pretty much all of it. We got pushback for our Vanguard, and he knew just the right people and what to say to get it through. We have a lot of experience on that Discord. A lot of coaches that have been coaching for a long time, different campuses, that will really be able to help provide support. As far as some basics, make sure Playfly is going through. If you have access to check your spam or what's getting blocked on your personal email, making sure that that is all going through so you don't miss any important information.
I got Jared. He's one of us. We're good.
Okay, cool. That's awesome. Oh yeah, Jared, sorry. Yeah. All right, need an admin. Again, when we talk about admin here, we're talking about Playfly admin. Discord is definitely one of your best places. If you are not a fan of Discord or you're not on your Discord often, I know a lot of people are saying Discord's blocked on their campus. I honestly, I keep it on my phone too, just because sometimes it's easier for me to be on my phone. You know, if I'm streaming on one PC and I have coaches chat on another, I just keep Discord on my phone. But it's totally your preference, whether you're using Discord or email. Just know that there's a lot of people ready to support you, answer your questions, get you through whatever hurdle. You don't have to do all this alone, because we are creating systems out of nothing, and that takes time. So make sure that you're reaching out. When you do reach out, please include your name, your school, and details on what the issue is, especially when you're emailing it. Oh, resource. Can somebody share the link directed to the resource center on AZ ePreps, please?
I got it.
Thank you. All right, spring updates.
Beat you to it.
Nice, John. These are the two major changes that were added. There are just questions brought up, and honestly, the way that I said it, it's growing pains. The way I explained it to the committee when we were going through it, we have been over the last 5 years really wanting to be recognized as a sport. It adds a lot of legitimacy to our programs when we are under our athletic directors, when we have that platform of being esports athletes versus being a club. However, and Brian Bolitho from AIA has said this from day one, the more recognition we get as a sport also comes with more accountability restrictions like traditional sports. And we have to remember that a lot of these restrictions have been put in place over the decades for traditional sports because there were people taking advantage of kids, taking advantage of situations, and not allowing them to still be kids. So the first one, this is purely for the spring season. We are bringing it up now so that if you have questions, we can address them before we get to spring. And that is that during the regular season, from January 27th until May 3rd, when we have the state championship, high school teams can only scrimmage and compete against other high school teams. That's the basis of it. You cannot scrimmage against a non-high school team as your Desert Ridge High School esports team.
Specifically an AIA member school. That's the bylaw, is it has to be an AIA member school, not just any old high school team.
So I know
Yeah, it could actually, sorry, AIA member school, or it could be a member school of another association from another state. So yeah, you can play in tournaments that have other schools from out of state as long as they're a part of their member association.
So if you have a school that's a member of the New Mexico Athletic Activities Association, Interscholastic Association, that's totally fine. A lot of us use systems like Gangster to find scrimmages. Some of those are college teams. Some of those are just pre-made teams of friends that play together. You have to be very careful with those, and you have to do your due diligence to make sure that you are only competing against high school teams. If you don't want to put that extra time in, my recommendation is that you avoid those platforms and try to find only high school scrimmages. That also includes any sort of tournaments that colleges are hosting during in season. You have to be very careful. I believe the only exception is the random cues because we have no control over those. So if your 5 team of League of Legends is joining in just as a team on Riot, on League of Legends, that's not an official scrimmage. You're just practicing. That we have no control over who you're getting matched up with. That could be 5 completely random people.
Yeah, that's correct. What John linked you to in that article, that was specifically the coach of the basketball team bringing his team to scrimmage a college team. So we're saying it can't be organized team activity. If students are on their own competing in Harkins tournaments or whatever it may be, that they are free to do that on their own. We're just talking about an organized team event that it's led by the coach of the school and is essentially all members of the team going to compete.
So you
in an
can't take
exhibition.
your team to a tournament at GCU when there's colleges competing there as well. But if a land center has a 2v2 Rocket League competition and 2 of your players decide to enter in, that's on their own time. Even though they might be on the same team, they're not there as Gilbert Esports Rocket League. I talked to Brian from PVCC. I believe everyone in that tournament is only high school teams. So that should be fine because it's only high school teams are participating in that tournament.
Yeah, it would just be on a case by case tournament basis. The same way, you know, different basketball teams will host, you know, Thanksgiving invitationals or Christmas invitationals. It's just you just need to make sure that the tournament does the diligence of making sure that they're all high school kids, and should that be the case, then they're good.
And again, like Brian had said, it's about the organized team. You cannot, as a Gilbert Esports Rocket League team, go in a scrimmage or compete in a tournament as a team against college teams or non-AIA teams. So that's where the distinction is going to come in. Did we address all the questions that came in the chat regarding this?
It looks like someone wants to know, what about the Harkins tournaments or the 1v1 tournaments, not teams? So those will just be an individual thing. Like as long as they're going in as, you know, John, whatever, you know, John Jacob and not Desert Ridge John Jacob, I would assume that's okay, right? Like you know what I
Because
mean?
they're doing it on their own time.
Right.
It's not an organized team. As a team, we're going to this competition. Is you as a coach, you in reality, you have no clue. Just 2 of your players decided to go to a tournament. You're not aware of it. You're not transporting them. You're not registering them. You're not the contact. If it's on their own time, then it's on their own time. Off season does not matter. Go ahead.
Correct. It's only in season. After season, you can do whatever you want to do. You know, like club activities essentially at that point. So we're only talking about the season of competition for spring concerning mainly varsity because that's scheduled and that is for a state championship.
So the fall season, you can still use Gangster. You can still go to tournaments. Fall season, because it's an exhibition season, it's not our official season. You are completely free. And yes, you can always spectate any tournament you want to go see. If you're like, we can't compete in it because it's a collegiate competition, but let's go see what the caliber looks like, what the abilities are. You know, you can definitely spectate. That's fine. Yes, go ahead, Robert.
Sorry, I didn't want to keep typing in the chat. So I have a couple of my guys who really like to go and they'll do like a one-on-one tournament, like, you know, at GCU and stuff, and they'll compete in one of those ones that have like college kids and stuff. So if they come to me and say, hey, you know, Coach Testa, I'm going to this, can I, if they're competing in it on their own, can I still go to like watch and stuff like that? Or will that now get into a gray area?
No, you can certainly go in and spectate, watch, whatever it is. And by the way, we're only talking specifically about the 3 games for which we compete at with AIA, which is league, Rocket League, and Super Smash. If they're competing in all other events, they can do whatever they want with any other game. That's not AIA sanctioned.
So as long
And-
as I, as the coach, don't say, "Hey guys, we as the Combs varsity team are going," as long as we don't do that, then it's okay.
Yeah,
Correct.
Okay.
correct. Yeah, for the most part, yes.
All right. So I know, and again, anytime that these come down, to me, it feels more like a victory because it brings us more recognition as a sport. And that's the way I really want us to frame this when we frame this with our students, is that it's because we're being taken seriously as a sport, just like all other traditional sports. You can't play club during your season if you play volleyball. And eventually clubs adjusted their schedules because of those bylaws in AIA. I know at least in Arizona, they're very strict about that. So eventually I hope that we get there, but that's the way that I would frame it, is that it's just the growing pains of being more legitimized. The second big one, yeah, Joe, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I'm not sure if I heard this answered or not, but Robert Newman asked if they played a middle school as a local fun activity. It was answered. Oh, my apologies. I missed it.
You're
Proceed.
good. All right. Over the summer, AIA updated what if there's local tournaments and I also participate. Yeah, that's fine. AIA updated the NIL bylaws. NIL stands for name, image, and likeness. This is essentially for kids being monetized over their name, image, or likeness related to their sport. This presentation has been shared with you all. I linked the training video from AIA. It's like a 7-minute video. I highly encourage you to watch it. It explains the new bylaws for NIL, and it gives you examples of what is okay and what violates the bylaws. But essentially, any sort of monetization that any athlete can get cannot be tied to their athletic performance, cannot be involved with the school, cannot include the school's name or use district equipment, cannot endorse products or activities that can violate the school's policies, drugs, alcohol, such things. And if a student does enter into a contract, an NIL contract, they have to notify the school athletic director within 5 days of signing that contract or agreement. The reason why we bring this up is because it does potentially create an opportunity for streaming. If you have a student that is earning money from their stream, it cannot be at all connected from their team. I know there are some schools that will use students' Twitch accounts to stream their sporting events, their games, their school matches during the regular season. If that student is at any point going to get any compensation from Twitch or YouTube or whatever because they're streaming it, that becomes an NIL issue that needs to be addressed. Best way to address this is don't allow your students to stream your official matches or your practices, would be the best way to address it, in my opinion. The video does a much better job of what is and isn't allowed. They use several different examples, but that is something for you to be aware of. And at the end of the day, if you have a question, even the video says it, talk to your athletic director. I assume that they've had in-depth training on this, because it does go into social media, into any sort of sponsorships that athletes might get. You need to be very, very careful that it doesn't violate the bylaws, because it could create eligibility issues for your players.
Yeah, and to the question here about prize money, this is specific to endorsement deals. This is like, like LeBron James who's repping Nike, so this is specific to like a endorsement deal, as I mentioned. That has to be notified to the school that student's involved in some sort of endorsement deal. That has nothing to do with prize money from tournaments.
So if you end up having a student that just really got famous on TikTok or Instagram or Twitch, and they're being endorsed by, I don't know, like Monster, You want to make sure that whatever they're doing, one, the school's aware that they have that contract with Monster or with Twitch or with TikTok or with whatever. And whatever their content that's going out related to their contract has nothing to do with their athletic ability, school name, school equipment, such things. All right. Any other questions about the NILs? Awesome. Okay, Smash Bros. The only big thing is Steve is allowed. Yay! We had a lot of comments and just requests to just allow Steve. That the issue with Steve isn't really that much of an issue. So yeah, Steve is allowed. Oh no, a sad face. League of Legends, again, summoner names cannot be changed in the middle of the season. So just drill that home with your kids, because if they change it, they're going to have to pay money to change it back or not compete. So they cannot change their name in the middle of the season. There was some question on whether or not something like Professor is allowed. We have discussed it, looked into it, what they do at the collegiate level. Professor is completely allowed. Just know if you get to championship, it probably won't be on those PCs. Other third-party sites like Mobiletics and those are more of a case-by-case. Playfly is reviewing them. If you have another third-party site such as Professor that you want, that has like an overlay that you have questions about, let us know and Playfly can look into it and see if it's something that we feel like is allowed. As just information, we feel like Professor doesn't really affect gameplay. It provides some information that can and may not be helpful, so it doesn't actually impact the game necessarily. All right, lots of information. Again, here's contact information for Playfly. If you need something direct, we do want to open it up. If you have specific questions, as registration opens, please join the Discord. Let us know how we can help. We're in and out, most of the committee on Discord throughout the day. One of us will see it. We can help you through email. Depending on the timing, we can potentially, even jump on a call with you. So just let us know. I believe the PowerPoint was shared. If not, we can definitely share it. Oh, I see. It gave me the option to share it. I just had to click on it. All right, the link should be in chat.
Yes, striking is still the same. We didn't make any changes.
Same maps. The order of strikes did not change at all. Any other questions? Feel free to unmute yourself if there's something we didn't address or you need more clarification.
It says I need access to the thing.
Okay, let me check on that.
It says request access.
Refresh now. I believe I've set it to anyone with link can view it.
Stephanie, yes, the fall season is just exhibition. It has no impact on anything that goes on in the spring.
Travis, the conflict is only introduced when, let's say, your college team would be playing against your high school team. That's the issue, is the competition and scrimmaging against different member schools.
Rachel, we're working on it. That's all I can say. We're working on it.
We might have a workaround, but we still need mom and dad to say yes.
Yes, we are diligently working for something. We think we came up with an idea to help bring data and information so that we can possibly get it approved. But as Robbie said, we're waiting for our parents to tell us yes, and then we can move forward and let you guys know. Yeah, but we haven't forgotten Valorant. We're looking for ways. Regular season's 15 minutes for an auto forfeit. You will only have 15 minutes to win.
So that would be 4:20 p.m. which is 15 minutes after the cue pops at 4:05.
And that's for the fall. In the spring, it will be 4:15 because in the spring matches do start right at 4. So yeah, we shortened it from the 30 minutes to the 15. So yeah, be aware. Yes, you can still add JV teams throughout the season. You just can't mess with the varsity because you'll have your full schedule. Is that me?
Someone's
Rob-
robotic.
That's not
Rob's
me.
unmuted at the same time as you, I think is what it is again.
Crap. Oh, that's a great question. I don't remember at the top of my head. Joe, do you remember finals, semifinals, and finals for Smash? Is it best of 5?
I believe that is best of 5 now. I'm digging into the rule book real quick to make sure.
Yeah, Christopher, that's exactly why we changed to the 15 minutes because waiting 30 minutes was not great. Some teams waited until the absolute last minute to forfeit, and then by then teams couldn't find another game. What do you mean divide up the groups?
Like we had different let's say we put whatever school A in one group, school B in one group, and then we just kind of threw them in there kind of randomly ish. Is there any do we have a way to kind of formalize that? I know it's kind of hard because
Yeah, we
both from year to year too.
we talked about this for probably an hour and a half. We came up with a pretty good way to do it. We're taking last year's performance into account as well, so the groups should be very statistically balanced this year. So we do have a process for that. So.
And then what if we lose students? So I have an Emerald student this year who's he's a senior, so I lose him next year, and that's going to be a sudden drop.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'll just use me as an example. I mean, we were state runner-up in Rocket League this year, and I lost my 4-year starter, captain, senior from that varsity team. So our relative strength is probably going to be weaker, but that's the way that that's the way that the schedule works out. And overall, the groups will be very balanced relative to that, because if you have a high-level team, just throwing one more person in there, that you're still going to perform at even a medium high level, versus doing it randomly is a lot less efficient. So yeah, there's always going to be the group of death, right? That group is always going to come up in some way, shape, or form. But the way that we have it done right now is the best way that we can get the most consistent groups without without having like a forensic inspection of everybody's accounts who's playing to figure out who's ranked where and how good this player is. And that would be a manual process that just isn't feasible for the size that we're at.
So there will be a chance that a high caliber team one year will be placed in a group where they're expected to perform well, but they lost their players, so they drop in caliber. But we feel that going off of previous records is going to be the best, most fair way to place our group. So essentially, whoever was top seed goes in group 1. Whoever was second seed goes in group 2. So that our highest teams don't all end up in the same group. We'll never be able to tell you right now how many groups there will be, how many people will be in the groups, because it depends on registrations. And I know we had a lot of comments of, can we play everyone in our group? That's not possible because we don't have a consistent number of teams joining. It all depends on how many teams register. That is always the goal, to create groups that everyone can play everyone, but it doesn't always work out that way. We had a couple other questions. Days of the week. Fall exhibition is the same. So League of Legends is on Tuesdays. Smash Brothers is on Wednesdays. Rocket League is on Thursdays. Question about postseason. Testa, we talked about it. The problem is that we don't have enough time in that one day to do more Smash games. We, especially not on the stage. So we'd rather, and there is a point where we'd like to have some consistency between all of our titles, as much as possible. So adding a whole nother set, quarterfinals at that point would be 4 games that would have to get played. That would be really hard to add it to just that one day of competition. We don't want to do 2 days of competition for the postseason in person. For teams that are traveling down from far, we want to minimize them having to get hotels and more meals and making that travel more expensive. So that's why we decided to essentially keep it the same.
I do recall we are now front loading the playoffs though. So that first week, some of the either probably Rocket League and Smash, you will play 2 rounds in that first week as opposed to 1 and then having it double in like the quarter semis. You will play the first 2 rounds in that first week, so that way teams will know here's the last 16 right away, as opposed to it kind of lingering on that way.
And I do want to just bring up, keep in mind, a lot of these ideas that you guys are bringing are great ideas and that we would love to see happen. If we could have every single match for the playoffs be on stage and broadcast and everything, I would love that. But we have to look at the entire state of, maybe let's say, I don't know, Window Rock or Page makes it to the state championship. Are we going to say, okay, have them drive all the way to Phoenix for every single playoff match? So there's kind of a happy medium that we have to find. And where we're at right now is about as good as we can do. When you consider that you have to have semifinals and finals of 3 games all on one day, all in one location. So it's just a logistical problem that doesn't have a great solution.
Yeah. Dual game days for playoffs this year. Honestly, we won't know that until we get closer to knowing how our numbers are looking. I believe we want to stick to what we had last year, which I don't think we had multiple games playing on the same day.
I think we did for Smash and Rocket League.
Oh, okay.
Just for the amount of teams we had.
And,
but like LaPlante said earlier, we're going to be front loading that first week, so it's a little bit easier to get through that, and then it gets easier as you get closer to the championship as far as playing matches.
Chris, we can do something like that. Reach out to me offline. I'd be happy to help with that. You guys can also look up Valley Christian Esports on YouTube. Shameless self plug. But my streams are pretty intricate. I've got face cams and everything. So reach out to me offline. In a previous life, I was a technical director as well to do broadcasts and things like that. So I'm happy to help with that sort of stuff. So yeah,
and John,
it's great. Yes.
If you have anything you want to simplify down that we can put in our resource center, we'd be happy to give access to it.
Let's talk offline about that and see if we can do like just a basic how-to sort of thing.
Sounds good.
Cool.
Awesome. So stats, the only one that I know that can track stats right now is League of Legends. I don't think it compares students though, on who performed the best. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, the challenge with tracking stats is that we are creating private matches that don't connect back to Playfly.
The challenge with collecting stats is most games do not have API access. This is larger than the 3 titles, but for the 3 we have, we don't have Rocket League API, we don't have Smash API. That means we can't pull any of the data, no matter how you play it. So, and then even if we have that API, like with League of Legends, we're restricted in how we can maneuver it and stuff, and working with our technical partner. Right? We can certainly bring additional ideas to them. But for most of their communities that they work with, that they're also paid to work with, how it is right now works. So it's a little bit lower on the priority list, to be completely transparent.
And Zeke, I'll say that for Rocket League and Smash Bros, one of the things that I do is I use my stream data and I make sure that the post game screen comes up that has the stats. And then I manually record that so I can keep those numbers about goals, assists, saves, and stuff like that for Rocket League. Smash, my kids just kind of mash through the stat screen, so we don't really capture that data. But there are ways that you can do it individually. It's just a huge science project to do that on a league-wide scale.
Right. So that like what Tessa's saying, like that can be kind of more like an individual project with how you're having kids queue up. It can help a little bit. But again, the system does not have the ability to track what character they played and all the different things that they did in games. So that's kind of up to coaches to do on their own. So, all right. Yeah, go ahead, Tosta.
So we noticed that if this goes for Smash mostly. I know there's a way to do something similar in Rocket League, but I'd have to look. If your characters, even if they play basic controls, still have them assign themselves like a name for their controllers, because then you can check their stats in the home screen. So I know it's for Smash mostly, but like it keeps track of their wins, their win percentages, and it even breaks it up by character. So even if they play just basic controls, instead of them having play on like player one, still have them make a name for themselves just to keep track of all that, because that's what we usually do.
Nice. Thank you. All right. So I know we've had some people head out, which is totally fine. Please reach out. I will put my email on here as well. Really want to make sure that everyone knows, like, we are here to support you in any way that we can. All of us have been in your boat in one way or another as a new coach, second year coach, third year coach. There are several of us on Discord that started in 2019 when everything started. So please reach out. You are not bothering us. I promise you can blow up our email, Discord, whatever. We really want to help you succeed and find a way to serve your kids as we create systems for our esports teams. So any last minute questions? We will record this and share it out as soon as, Google gives us the recording and such. Fantastic. Well, we will have another one for the spring season. That one will definitely have a lot more in depth for upcoming rules and processes for spring. But until then, good luck with your fall season. We'll see you on Discord, and seriously reach out if you need help getting your teams registered, ideas for recruiting, whatever it may be. Join that Discord, and we'll be here to help you through it. Have a great night, everyone.
Thank you, friends.
Oh, perfect timing.